Greetings, book lovers everywhere, and welcome to E-Train Talks. I'm E-Train, I'm your host, and I am so excited for this interview because I'm in the US, but my guest is in Dublin. Well, actually, they're on holiday, but they usually live in Dublin, Ireland. So, joining me across the Atlantic Ocean is a fantastic author, artist. They pretty much do everything. So, ever since I read his incredible debut novel, I've dived into all the work that he's done for social activism, social justice, and all the incredible work he's been doing through his social media platforms. So, he's made a big social media impact with his art and comic strips that detail social justice and, kind of fight for the truth. He gained over 300,000 followers in a matter of weeks, which is just mind boggling to think about. And he's just from what I've read and from what I've talked to him for the little time that I have, he seems like a really amazing guy, and frankly, he is. So, everybody, this is the author of Puzzled, a memoir about growing up with OCD. And if you can't tell by the title and by the author, this is my interview with Pan Cooke. Woo!
Hi, E-Train. Thank you so much for that generous introduction. I'm really happy to be here and chat with you.
I'm happy that you're here as well, and I've learned so much about living with OCD and so much about your story, but your life story and just a lot in general from your book. So I know a lot of people are going to learn a lot from this interview about just your life, OCD, and so many other things. All right. So my first question for you is that in your graphic memoir, you share that for most of your childhood, you didn't really know why your brain worked the way it did. And it just, you had so many other ideas of why it worked. Maybe you were possessed by the devil. But when you finally discovered that you might have OCD, I don't know, how did that make you feel? What emotions went through your head when you kind of had the discovery?
Yeah, well, it was quite a long journey. As you mentioned, at first I thought I might be possessed by the devil. Then I eventually thought that I could be crazy, and it was a really confusing time for me. So when I finally discovered that it might be OCD through my own internet kind of uh, internet research, at first it was a really liberating thing to find out that what was going wrong with me wasn't something as disturbing as devil possession. But unfortunately, as time went by, I found out that I didn't gain the clarity that I hoped that I would because other people's perception of OCD was so distorted. So
Mhm.
when I eventually grew the confidence to share with other people, they kind of all had this idea of OCD as being this thing that people love to keep things clean or like a personality preference or a quirk, which OCD isn't. So that kind of made my it kind of took away some of the clarity I gained. Because you kind of when I got a name for it, I was like, oh, I'll be like I understand it. Hopefully, other people understand it as well. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Which
Mhm.
is kind of one of the goals of the book itself is that once other people can understand OCD for what it really is, people who get diagnosed with it can gain the clarity, which unfortunately at the time I was unfortunately not able to get.
Yeah, and I think my mom actually has OCD, so that was a bit
Oh
of
wow.
therapy for her and also kind of for me as well. Just kind of I love the fact that your story is just so accepting. Like we learn to accept people with OCD, we understand it. I feel like accepting and understanding are two different things, and when you combine
Yeah,
that's like that's extra special. So what you did with Puzzled is I mean, it's kind of puzzling just how awesome it is. So
that's an amazing compliment coming from you as well. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
anyway,
Mediums. I'm the same.
medium. There you go.
Graphic novels for me are always my favorite as well because, like as they say, Stephen King always says that like writing a book is like like being telepathic. I can transfer for from my thoughts into your head, but if I'm also drawing them, I'm giving you even a more clear picture of what I believe my story to be. So I'm always I always love graphic novels for being able to the author can kind of show you more than even just the words. So I find it a great medium also.
Yeah. And I love that we're seeing so many more graphic novels in middle grade and graphic memoir specifically, which is really exciting because you get to learn about the authors, learn about just people in general, and kind of grow to understand them. So
Yeah, I
I
completely
will,
agree.
as I mentioned earlier, I really love puzzle, but of course, there's not just one reason for that. It's a really complex book, and I hope that a lot more kids discover your amazing story. So, would you share why you kind of chose to write about your experiences with OCD? What kind of clicked in your head that you wanted to, share your sort of life story? And what messages do you hope your readers will take away from Puzzled?
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, I had quite a whirlwind experience with social media where I began on my very beginning doing comics. I was telling a lot of stories around the Black Lives Matter movement. It was kind of a journey of self education, which I found other people really also benefited from. I got that through feedback from other people. And then after a while, I kind of thought that I had this ability to tell stories and to educate people, and I had my own story to tell. And I was like, it'd be great if I could take an experience to me that was quite difficult and transform it into something that other people can gain from, and hopefully help someone or several people that are just like me. So it really kind of came about organically. It wasn't something that I even had planned, but once I kind of discovered that, oh, I actually have this skill which people seem to be connecting with, I was looking for ways that I could kind of tell my own story through that medium. So that's really how it all began. Yeah.
Yeah. So you really do, like, I can tell you have a way with words, but also with pictures and art illustrations, and that can just be so great for readers, especially reluctant readers. Just when you have the words, you can kind of like you draw a picture in your head when you read, but when you really have that, you kind of that connection grows in your head. And um the next question for you is kind of staying on that train of thought. What was the writing process like for you? Did you kind of have your illustrations first, or was it writing first? And I guess, how did it all kind of turn out for you?
To be honest, it was really intimidating because, as I mentioned, I got the book deal off the back of my social media, and
Mhm.
Instagram gives you the ability to share 10 panels. So moving from 10 panels to a 200 plus page book was very intimidating, and I kind of when I first started writing it, I didn't know where to begin. I hadn't done anything like that. I was really hoping that I'd be able to do it, and it was a 3 year process of kind of finding my feet and learning. But it was so rewarding, and because it was about me, I kind of was learning. I learned a lot about myself through it. Certain aspects of my personality that I may not have originally identified as being symptoms of OCD. I learned, oh, this actually probably was OCD, and it turns out it was. So it was an intimidating process, but I learned a lot, and it was really rewarding. So yeah, like again, like a great experience, but it was at the very beginning very overwhelming.
Mhm. And do you think that you maybe, like, learned about yourself a little bit as you were writing?
Yeah, 100%. Because you obviously look back in your youth. Well, you're still young, so I'm sure you haven't done that yet. But I look back at my youth, and you kind of think you have a clear image of it, but it takes you going into it in depth to really discover the more intricate details of it. There were certain things that overlapped or connected that I hadn't seen before, um, which was really kind of interesting and almost therapeutic to learn while I was doing it.
Yeah.
So it was great. Like I thought, like again, it was like one. I sometimes I describe it as like a 3 year therapy process where it was just me and my pencil. But I loved it. Loved every minute of it.
How and when did you
Well,
realize?
first,
Oh, sorry.
no. Well, first of all, you're saying like when I was your age, I was literally just doodling images. Like it wasn't until my late 20s that I even it came apparent that I could do art as a job. So I would definitely not dismiss your own artistic abilities. Like you never know, we might see a graphic novel from you in 10 years' time. But
Maybe.
no, like I loved it. Like again, like drawing is my passion, and I think even if I wasn't lucky enough to write puzzled, I would be doing trying to write it. If I
Mhm.
was working a 9 to 5 job, I think I'd be trying to write these stories for free by myself, just for myself anyway, because
Mhm.
it's such a passion of mine. So being able to give the ability to do it as a job every day was a complete blessing. And although again at times it was intimidating and overwhelming, I just was just so lucky to be able to do that. And I was grateful, and that gratitude kind of made the intimidation a little. I was like committed to trying to do it as good as I could. Um, so I think I did the best job I could have done at the time, and I loved every minute of it. So yeah.
Yeah. And my next question for you is, many of your comic strips, they tackle mature topics that maybe some middle graders might not feel ready to learn about yet. So, your first story, though, is written for middle graders. So why did you kind of decide to change artistic directions and craft your first book, a graphic memoir geared towards kids, rather than maybe your older Instagram and social media audience?
Yeah, well, I think some of my older stuff, although not specifically directed at middle graders, I've had interactions with parents who have used some of my comics about more adult topics
Hmm.
to discuss more mature themes with their kids. Because even my comics that do discuss things like police brutality and other kind of more, I suppose, graphic occurrences are done in a way where I don't show violence. I try to
Right.
make them quite easy to understand. So although my earlier stuff wasn't directly at middle graders, I feel it overlapped because it was kind of me trying to take complex topics and make them digestible.
Hmm.
Um, so I think there was definitely an overlap, which helped me with Puzzled in just basically breaking down complex things. Like I know there's a huge gap between my old comics and writing about things like intrusive thoughts and stuff, but
Hmm.
having the ability to kind of break down complex topics definitely worked in my favor when I eventually began writing Puzzled.
So, from what I've seen, your comics have been reporting on other people's lives and experiences. But, in Puzzled, you are the subject of your writing and your art. So, what was it like going from writing about others to writing about yourself?
It was, yeah, it was an interesting process because I suppose when you're writing about other people, you can kind of you obviously have a dedication to tell their story accurately, but you can kind of disconnect yourself
Hmm.
from it. If you're telling your own story, you really have to get back into your mindset at the time, which again, it was self-educating, it was therapeutic. I definitely came away from the whole book knowing myself better and feeling better about kind of some of my struggles when I was younger, which I might have just maybe even kind of avoided thinking about because
Hmm.
it was I wanted to take those more difficult experiences, and also not even just with my symptoms of OCD, but also with kind of my relationships and friendships that may not have worked out well, and putting blame on others or putting blame on myself. I was able to kind of in the narrative of the story explore those in more detail, and it was again a really rewarding and therapeutic process. So it was very different to my older comics about other people, but it was rewarding in a different way, and I definitely walked away from it knowing myself better.
So,
Perfect.
will you share when your love of drawing first began? And I guess, did you always know that your path would include art? Or maybe not just art, but also writing, kind of being a document or a journalist in a sense?
Well, I always loved drawing. My family are very sports orientated, and I never really liked sport. I was always into music and drawing. I was the kid in school who all his homework notebooks were covered in doodles as opposed to their homework. So I always loved art. I definitely hoped that art would be in my future. I don't think for a long time I thought that was an option. But as I kind of got more deeper into art as I grew, I was very fortunate to find out that people connected with certain aspects of my art even before I did cartoons. Um, so I'm very grateful. I always wanted to be involved in art, whether it be music, drawing. I don't think I ever could. I don't think if you told me 10 years ago that I would have written a book, I would have believed you because I would have. Again, I wasn't very academic in school. I wouldn't have thought that I would be able to write a book. I think I probably could have thought, oh, maybe I'd be able to draw one, but writing one probably to me probably seemed out of my capabilities. But
Mhm.
the fact that I've done that now and I'm definitely more comfortable as a writer, um, is something that I'm incredibly proud of, and I'll be proud of for the rest of my life.
So, I know you're from Ireland, and the United States is a whole ocean away. So, your debut story actually was available in the US upon publication. So, they kind of seem, at least to me, it seems kind of unprecedented. I've heard of a lot of authors who first have books published in their own country or maybe even continent before diving into US, before diving into, international. So, how did you go
Yeah.
about selling your story in the United States? Did it kind of start that way? And why do you feel publishers chose your story over others?
I got very lucky again. It was off the back of my social media following.
Oh yeah.
I got a big social media following, and it was mainly based in the US.
Hmm.
So through different people, I was lucky enough to get signed to an agency that were based in America, um, and gained two great agents. And so when they eventually um, uh, basically sent out my book to publishers, it was based in America, which is brilliant. And people in Ireland now always joke about it, because we have a joke in Ireland where people normally do it is they release a book in Ireland and they eventually break America.
Hmm.
Where I broke America and no one knows who I am. So I've done it backwards. Where but if you're gonna do it one way, you might as well. You'd rather be known in America and not be known in Ireland than everyone know you in Ireland, considering the different size of countries. But again, it was kind of based off social media, and kind of the stories I was telling were really based in America. Although I have told stories that have basis in Ireland as well, but just kind of through that the networking and connections I made on social media were all America based.
Yeah.
And but not to say that Puzzled will only benefit people in America or people in Ireland. I think it's a universal story that kids across the globe will hopefully be able to identify with, and especially kids who are struggling to understand OCD and the symptoms that go along with it.
Yeah. So I sincerely hope that with Puzzled, it won't just be, in the US and Ireland. I think it really I know it is going to, and it also deserves to just be everywhere because it's a story, like you said, it's anyone can feel seen in it, whether they have OCD or not. Because you kind of anxiety, you kind of just go through the struggles of really like all kids. We all have these sort of,
Yeah,
intrusive thoughts, and even if we don't feel it, I think we all sort of connect with you and connect with your
yeah,
story.
but it's also kind of even outside of OCD, like it's about friendships and like
Right.
how
Yeah.
as you grow, like people naturally drift. It's no one's fault, and you find your friends again, and sometimes you don't, and it's just about kind of finding your place and belonging. And that every kid, whether they have OCD or not, goes through that experience, and I try to tie
Yeah.
that into the story as well.
Yeah, we can find ourselves in like the wrong crowd, just trying to be cool, trying to fit in, and you know,
100%, and that was my experience definitely
yeah.
in Puzzled. Sorry, yeah.
Mhm. So another question that I have for you is about your collaborations with other organizations. So I read online that you've collaborated with Amnesty International and Campaign Zero, which are both advocacy and activism groups, which kind of fits in perfectly with what you do. So how
Hmm.
did you first build these connections through with other organizations, and how do you contribute? Do you contribute through your drawings or another outlet?
So I suppose my partnership with Amnesty and Campaign Zero happened at the same time. With Amnesty, it was through a family friend who had been working with Amnesty and kind of saw what I was doing, and he was like, "You do a great job of breaking down complex topics into digestible formats, and especially stories that involve individuals, whether it's to do with false imprisonment or things like that." So they kind of used me. They didn't use me. They kind of recruited me to help them tell stories that needed to be told and that people needed to know, and that kind of gave call to action incentives at the end so people could get involved. And it was very much the same with Campaign Zero. DeRay McKesson reached out to me, and he works with families, people involved in police brutality, um, who are trying to get justice for the families. And so what I did basically was what I've done a lot of my social media comics is work along with families to tell the stories of their loved ones, and the kind of injustices they suffered in a digestible format with call to action items that could hopefully lead to there being justice solved. But there are a lot of different things. Like it wasn't just police brutality. There was people who were falsely imprisoned or who were put in prison for different reasons, and kind of just using my art and my medium to tell those stories in again a digestible format.
Mhm.
And working with those two organizations has been a huge highlight of my career, because you really can see the difference you make, and be able to talk to people within the cases and everything was just really rewarding.
Yeah. I love that, and I love that you're using not just Instagram but other outlets to um, show your work and show just how much work we need to do to make the world a better place, to add social
Yeah,
justice into the world. And
yeah,
you're doing a really great.
100%. Thank you so much, and I think you are as well. The advocacy you do for readers and your own reading is really impressive and amazing.
Thank you. So, another question that I have about you is, well, in doing research for our talk, I discovered that at one time that you focused your artwork on portraits, and that your art happened to be recognized or discovered on the day you heard the news of the late and truly great Robin Williams. So, will you share what happened on that day and how it has impacted your career since?
Yeah, so I was in probably just finished college, and I was in the infancy of my kind of art path, and I was doing street art. So one aspect of street art is these wallpaper posters. So they're not like spray paint, so they're kind of like these paper things. You can go out to like a wall, and you use wallpaper glue, and you slap them up, and they dry in, but they're not as permanent. So I suppose you don't get in much trouble if the police catch you because they eventually come down. Um, but I was experimenting with portraits of celebrities, and Robin Williams would have been one of my all-time favorites.
Mhm.
Actually, Pan is a nickname that I have, and it's born. I don't know if you've seen the movie Hook, where Robin Williams plays Peter Pan. Anyway, that's where the name came from. And then I got the news, the really tragic news that Robin Williams had passed at about midnight Ireland time, and I had this 6 foot poster down in my kitchen, and I was like, this needs to go up tonight. So when everyone wakes up and goes to work tomorrow, they'll see this as a tribute. And so I basically got out of bed and I took my bike and I put it up on a wall near my house. And the next morning, when people were going to work and the radio was kind of going, Rob Williams has passed, and people were in shock, they were driving to an intersection in Dublin, and there was this huge picture of Rob Williams, and everyone was like, "That was fast." So it got quite a bit of a media attention. I think there was actually a few websites that thought that were quite conspiratorial and thought I had something to do with it. But again, Robin Williams was someone who was really important to me growing up, and that tribute to him really set me on my path and got me a bit of a following I was lucky enough to have. So yeah, that was a really probably a huge moment where I realized that the artwork that I create, people in some way are identifying with or appreciate, and kind of motivated me to keep doing it.
Yeah. And since then, you've done truly incredible things. And I mean, well, yeah, everything that you do, it's for social justice. It's for, you know, highlighting important pieces of news, important people, important things that we have to know as humans, as citizens of the earth and the world. And you're just whether it started with Robin Williams and your portraits, it's gone incredible places now. So,
Thank you so much. But again, like a lot of the stuff I do is like I don't know if I consider myself an educator so much as like I'm trying personally to learn as I'm older. I spent a long time, probably during my 20s, kind of ignoring everything, and I'm now very interested in a lot of topics, and I'm learning. And then when I create the comics and stuff about topics that I'm learning about, it seems that other people are learning with me. Where I don't want to I kind of put myself at the same level as my readers, as opposed to being like, I'm going to teach you. I'm like, oh, I'm learning about this, and you can learn along with me. So
yeah.
yeah, it's been I love it as well. So yeah.
If you were a middle school teacher, I think you'd be the best middle school teacher I'd have because just that learning along with you sort of idea, or I guess I don't know if you say middle school in Ireland, but like I think
We
hopefully,
don't, but that's an amazing compliment. So thank you so much.
yeah, it's just that connection that you have, like as you're both learning along the way, that can really be impactful on both ends of the like.
I agree. I think it adds to my passion as well because like I'm learning about it now. I'm like either the shock or the interest that I have is very evident to my work, and I think when people are kind of reading it and connecting with it, they I hope get that same kind of feeling.
One question that I'm sure everybody is curious about, and we all want to know the answer to, is will there be any more pan cookbooks? Or not cookbooks, but you get the idea.
Yeah, yeah,
To look forward to.
yeah.
Do you
Yeah,
have any
no,
plans in the
yeah.
works?
I'm working on book two. It's very infant phase. I'm working with another brilliant co-author on this one, NCU fod, and it's more activism based. But again, it'll be another, gosh, 2 years or so before it's out. So I'm not sure what details I can share, but I there is another book in the works, and I'm really excited about it. And a lot of the skills and things I learned through Puzzled as my first book, I'm taking over to this one, and I'm really excited about it. So more soon. Watch the space.
I'm excited. I'm excited. We all are. So,
Thank you so much.
This is a question that I really just started implementing into interviews, so you're one of the first to hear it. So if you could choose one song that best represents Puzzled, which song would it be and why?
That is an absolutely brilliant question. A difficult question, but a great question. I think it's hard to pick a song that kind of covers the whole of Puzzled, but a song that I from a band that I love, and that is one of the only really kind of OCD uh, based songs, would be a song called Jailbird by a band called The Interrupters. And it's kind of about the lead singer's experience with intrusive thoughts and OCD. And I think a lot like Puzzled, it deals with quite quite harrowing ideas and stuff, but in like a digestible and like upbeat format. Because again, Puzzled is about like some kind of heavy stuff, but I think I add in some sort of some comedy and humor where it's digested through that. Like it's not the book is like leaves you with a message of hope at the end, and I think that song is an upbeat song. You can listen, it's not a sad song, and I love it, so it's worth listening.
Mhm. I'll definitely check it out. And um, yeah, I think music is just a really great outlet to, express yourself, kind of like with your stories, with your art, and also just, speak your truth through the lyrics and through music videos as well. If I don't know if there's a music video for that, but I'll certainly
No,
get.
100%. My I first like music was my first thing before books. It was the thing that I connected with, and I think it's just art. Every form has its own special way of connecting with people.
Yeah, I think my mom still has videos of me just like playing the ukulele when I was 3, just singing Beatles songs. So
When you
music,
were 3,
yeah. I mean, I don't think
wow!
I knew the words, but I knew the tune at least.
I'm not sure I could even speak when I was 3.
Yeah, I think I might have just been saying gibberish. I might have just been saying like
Well, that's perfect for the Beatles then.
yeah,
There'll be Beatles fans now coming for me if they hear me saying
yeah,
that.
yeah. I don't know what my parents would say about that, but
Yeah, we'll
yeah.
edit that one out. We'll edit that bit out then.
Yeah. So now it's time, sadly, but also, interestingly, for the final question of the interview. This is a question that I've asked every single person I've interviewed, and I've heard a lot of varying answers, so no pressure about anything. You don't need to have, there's no one specific answer that's better than the rest because we all have different, views on books and authors. So, okay. You all know what it is, everybody. And this is the question. If you could be or meet any literary character, you could be or meet your favorite author, or it could be your favorite book character, or both. Who would it be and why?
Okay, that's another great question. I think I'll go for a B, and but also I would love to meet is I would go with Peter Pan. I think
Mhm.
again as Pan Cook,
Yeah.
I have a deep affinity for Peter Pan. I don't know what it is. I
Mhm.
love the film Hook. I love the Disney film, the classic. I love the J.M. Barrie novel. So to be Peter Pan be brilliant, but to meet him and to be able to be brought over to Neverland, be chilling out there with the Lost Boys, be great.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll go with Peter Pan.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And you know, maybe you are Peter Pan. You know, maybe
I
it's you.
could be.
Is there something you're not telling us? You have that pan. You have you know
Well, well,
you
I'll
have
tell you.
the pan.
I'll tell you an interesting story. I took over the name Pan as a nickname when I was a teenager, and I
Yeah.
was everyone kind of based me around Peter Pan. And my family home is called Kiramir. Um, so some houses here have numbers, some have names.
Hmm.
So when I was in my mid-20s, me and my brother, for some reason, were like, what even is Kiramir? So we Googled it, and it came up on Wikipedia, and I fell to the floor. That Kiramir is a town in Scotland where J.M. Barrie was born, the author of Peter Pan, and in the town square is a statue of Peter Pan, and it just blew our minds because everyone called me as Pan, and then we found out that I was living in a house named after the village where J.M. Barrie, the author of Peter Pan, lived. So yeah, that's my story.
You have a lot of stories to tell, so I cannot wait for your next book. I cannot wait for all of your upcoming works, whether it's through Instagram or through books or through any outlet. And I'm sure everybody else has had a wonderful, wonderful time listening to this interview. I hope so, everybody. And You know, I'm going to stop this extra right here because this is a call to action, everybody, like what Pan does. All of you, you have to order Puzzled. Puzzled is an amazing story. You are going to love it, everyone. You are truly going to adore it. You're going to devour it in like one sitting. And yeah, order it right now. What are you waiting for? You can even turn this off. Just go order the story. So, for those of you who are still here or came back after that, let's all give a round of applause for Pan. This has been such a fun interview. I've learned so much. We all have. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day.
Thank you so much, Train. I had a great time chatting with you, and I'll be following you as I am. I think what you're doing is brilliant. I'm such a huge fan, so thank you so much for having me.
I'm a huge fan of you as well, and I can guarantee you're gonna have a ton of new fans after this who are all gonna be just dying to see more of your work, and they're gonna be begging for more. So don't be afraid.
That's very kind of you to say. Thank you so much.
So, everybody, I've been talking with Pan Cooke, the author of Puzzled, a middle grade graphic memoir that I highly recommend all of you got your hands on. And, well, you've got to, everybody. You've got to. So, that's all for today. Until next time, stay safe, keep reading. And by reading, I mean read Puzzled. That's gotta be your next to read book. I know a lot of you have really tall TBR stacks, to be read stacks, but this has gotta be on the top of it. Trust me, you're gonna love it. So, I'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much. Bye bye.